KNUS, and we'll get to everybody's phone calls. But first, you have Lindsey Singer, Julie, who's with Colorado Rising Action.
Colorado Rising Action. Hey, Lindsey, thank you for your time. It was kind of late notice, but I was happy to see you could make it, so thank you for your time.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on.
So, Lindsey, I just have to say, Chuck has been saying for months that one of the things the Republicans need to do is to fight fire with fire. And I have been watching you guys because I follow your tweets and I check out your website, and you guys are. So first, I just want to say congratulations to you guys. You're fighting fire with fire. You're not just saying, that Phil Weiser, he's a nice guy, he'd make a good AG. You're like, no, he's completely unqualified. You got to vote for George Brockler. So thank you first of all for the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you. And there's a lot of great groups that do great work in Colorado, but we saw an opening and some stuff that we could help and come in with, and that's what we're doing.
So maybe before we get to the Polis situation, because I saw the news release you're sending out about that, which I also think was great. Why don't you just tell folks a little bit about your organization, where they can find you, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So our organization, Colorado Rising Action, we're helping to promote conservative principles, and most of all, we're helping to hold the left accountable for their actions and their what they say. So we do that through tracking. We have on-the-ground trackers who follow some of these races and some of the candidates around because, there's a lot of examples of politicians running for office right now who say one thing to one audience and another thing to another audience. And, Jared Polis does that all the time. And so we want to have footage of that so we can point that out and show the public.
And what?
Another part of it.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Another part of it is research. So we have the background of, and we can really say this hasn't been its position all along. Here's how this has changed over time, and we have the research to back that up.
All right. No, and you guys do a great job. Let me ask you this, because the Jared Polis story broke yesterday. I still have not seen it on the Denver Post, by the way. But what was because I saw you guys had somebody there trying to ask him about it. What was the reaction that you guys got when you tried to talk to Polis about this 1999 police report?
I think that clip was from someone from the Republican Governors Association in D.C.
Okay.
So same idea of tracking, and that's why it's so important to have that. And so that was someone doing it in D.C., and it's the kind of thing we're doing here in Colorado.
Okay. Either way, he did not turn around and say, well, here's a total explanation. I'm so sorry that I pushed and shoved that woman. I totally apologize, and I condemn that kind of behavior. That wasn't the reaction, was it?
That wasn't. He completely ignored the person asking the question, actually, and we still haven't heard anything from Jared Polis on this incident. And, I think people deserve to hear his explanation because this kind of violence is never the answer.
Right. And what we're talking about is there was a 1999 police report filed, and Todd Shepard with Complete Colorado he was with Complete Colorado. Now he's with Washington Free Beacon, broke it. And rather than me doing all the talking, Lindsey, why don't you go ahead and explain what's the gist of the story?
Yeah, so the story broke. There was a police report about an incident in Jared Polis's company in 1999 where, a female, an elderly, older employee was leaving, and they got into an altercation as she was trying to leave the office. The police report talks about, she has bruises on her arms, and she was pushed, Jared, to his own admission, pushed her into a filing cabinet. And she has some bruises and welts, and that's all documented in the police report, which we have. And unfortunately, she's no longer with us to tell her side of the story. But what we do have are those reports, and what we need is some kind of answer or explanation from Jared Polis, and then the Colorado voters can decide if they believe his defense was worth this kind of an action.
Well, and then also coincidentally, in a move I find odd, so his name was Jared Polis Schultz, and then after this incident, granted about a year later, but he changed his name to Jared Schultz Polis, which I can tell you as a reporter makes it a lot harder to try to find things. I mean, if somebody were to say, hey, there was a 1999 police report on Jared Polis, and that's what you searched, you would not necessarily come up with this police report, right? And so, and here's what I find suspicious, though, Lindsey. So, and tell me what your thoughts are on this. So, the Colorado Sun then Pat Schroeder and the Denver Post all chime in, do a complete hit job on Lang Sias and do everything they can to try to imply that he is personally responsible for the sex scandal of Tailhook, and that somehow he's lying when he says he wasn't doing anything and didn't see anything. And they totally slam him. We've seen numerous media outlets do what I consider to be hit jobs on Walker Stapleton involving his great-great-grandfather and all kinds of things. But nobody, I don't think, is doing anything with this that I've seen except to explain why Jared Polis was the victim here.
Yeah, so we've seen some good headlines. This has gotten some traction nationally and in Colorado. But Jared's been running for office for a long time, since sort of right after this incident that we're talking about. And why hasn't this been come about before? And you mentioned the name change. It was kind of harder to track down, but there's a reason that him and his team didn't want this in front of voters. And now that it is, he really needs to answer for it.
I agree. And I think, again, and I'm just going to bring up what I consider to be the unfair treatment, right? You have Sean Boyd saying to Walker Stapleton and all the headlines, Stapleton refuses to condemn KKK, blah, 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 right? Mm-hmm. So how come nobody's writing a headline, Polis refuses to condemn violence against women? I mean, to me, it seems, I don't know. Somebody, and now you're right, somebody besides just us needs to be the Republicans demanding that Jared Polis respond to this.
Yeah, part of what Colorado Rising Action does by pushing out stuff like this is to really, get the information out there and activate the base and people who are saying the same thing that you're saying and thinking the same thing that you're thinking. And people should be demanding that he responds in some way. And this can, be through contacting the media or social media posts, something like that, but kind of amplifying, taking what we're putting out there and amplifying the message.
Let me ask you this. If there were some things that you wanted to point out, like you said, you guys do some tracking. Let me give you a little bit of an opportunity here to sort of point out some of the things that you think maybe people might not be aware of regarding Jared Polis, who's a Democratic candidate for governor, but maybe people might want to know about.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting. Jared Polis, there's a lot out there because he's been in the public eye for a long time. So there's a lot of information out there about his investments in energy companies. He's running, part of his platform is running on 100% renewable energy. And, we don't think that that's good for Colorado. But he has also invested in companies that do fracking and oil and gas. And he was asked about this at one point, and his response was, well, the companies I'm invested in aren't in Colorado. They don't affect my constituents. Those are in Wyoming or Canada. And that's just not okay because, if you believe that 100% renewable energy and the environment and that's what you're standing on, then it doesn't align. And that's part of the hypocrisy that is Jared Polis.
Well, I think, as you said, he's willing to say anything to get elected. But I know we have, I guess we laughingly refer to them as secret friends, right, who say, they were worried about Kerry Kennedy because they said she's a true believer. We couldn't work. But Jared Polis, like, these guys are businessy guys. They're like, we can work with him, right? And so you're absolutely right there. Well, listen, I won't keep you long, but just want to, what other kinds of things are you guys working on? Do you guys need help? I mean, what can people do for you?
Yeah, the best way to help is we're at coloradorisingaction.org. We also have, we're on Facebook and Twitter, and taking our stuff and retweeting it, sharing it, liking it, all that would be very helpful. And then, talking to your friends and neighbors about this stuff, raising the question amongst your groups, why hasn't Jared Polis answered for this assault? Right. In 1999, he still hasn't answered for it.
And you got to wonder, let me just interrupt you a second. I personally, you got to wonder, why wasn't he charged with assault? I mean, even his own account of it is assault, right? Now, she gets charged with stealing company documents. Okay, I can see that she did, right? But why? I don't understand. Well, tragically, I think I do understand because I covered the Ramsey case for years in Boulder. And I think the Boulder police, particularly at that time, they dealt with very rich people one way and other people another way. But I think that's a question, too, in terms of why wasn't he ever charged? Why does he get to go around saying he's the victim in this?
Exactly. Him calling himself the victim is, it's not accurate. And So he does definitely need to answer for that. And it could be, it could be Boulder. But what we do have here is a police report that talks about the incident. He had a temporary restraining order for a very short period of time. And then, we don't really know why that went away. But we just have what's in front of us. And unfortunately, the actual victim is no longer with us to defend herself or talk about her side. But
right, he should. Let me, final question for you. How do you get this? This is what I'm wondering is, we hear from people, and you look at that the polls show that this gubernatorial race, I think there were some who thought perhaps it was Jared Polis's to walk away with, but we hear from people saying, no, the polls show it's much closer. You look at the fact that the Republican Governors Association is still very involved. You look at the fact that you guys are here doing work, and to me that says that no, this is a pretty darn close race. I mean, what are you guys hearing and seeing?
Yeah, I'm kind of hearing that too, and I think that a lot of people that may not be as loud or as public are saying, like, there's a lot on at stake in Colorado. There's a lot of races this year. The Senate is the state Senate's in the balance, the Attorney General, the governor, a lot of these ballot issues, and people are kind of waking up now is what we're seeing a lot more interest in. We need to stop the left from taking over Colorado, and we really need to, keep the balance on the Republican side. I
absolutely agree. Hey, Lindsey, thank you for your time. Thank you for the work that you guys are doing. Feel free to pop us emails anytime if you get something that you think people need to know about.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. Our thanks are to Lindsey Singer with Colorado Rising Action. We're going to take a quick break. Everybody on the phones, hang on. We'll be right back. This is Chuck and Julie on News Talk 710 KNUS.
News Talk 710